Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Hey there, Youth Worker Nation. Hey, my wife has been watching Life Below Zero. She watches these things. She loves it. I tell you, I said, hey, honey, do you want to move to Alaska or something? Is that what you want? And she says, no, I don't want to move. She says, it makes me, realize how much I like it in Florida. Well, I get that, I have a lot of friends, though, and I like the cold, by the way, as long as I can go in and come back to Florida where I live. Because I lived in the cold for a long time, went to Appalachian State University because I'm a North Carolina boy. Then spent a couple of years out in Oklahoma, and that changed me a bit because it was always cold, and it did not matter what you wore, the cold went right through you. So moved to Florida, been here for a long time. Let's talk about winter retreats. I love retreats. I don't really like your normal camps and things. Now, don't let that turn you off, because don't get me wrong, we do that sort of thing. But I grew up going to camps. In fact, I remember the rustic camps there in North Carolina, William B. Umstead Park. I don't know what kind of park they meant it to be, but it used to be like a military training ground. I remember waking up about every year and there was a snake in the cabin at least one time, all right? Then there were no outdoor lights. If you didn't have your flashlights, you were in the dark. And so we kicked snakes by accident while we're walking back from the big main hall where we'd meet and eat and that sort of thing. And then I went to some nice camps. Young Life Camp up here, really cool place. But still, camp is camp, and a lot of activities going on that are concentrated, and you're really filling in time with students. But it, had a pool, had some different things that they can do. Then I went to conferences also. With Youth for Christ, Campus Life, I went to the winter retreat, which we had up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, for the southeastern region of our national program. And we'd go up there in the wintertime, which is great for Florida people especially. That was my first ski trips, things like that. And we'd go up there, and I love the terrain, but after going to a lot of conferences, 2,000-3,000 people, we'd do Washington, D.C., which was a real jungle in itself. D.C.'s kind of a jungle, with all the different political things going on. And I love D.C., by the way. Fun place to be, especially with students. So incredible, so phenomenal, and with people in general. There were like 20,000 there, okay, since 1985. The last one was in 2006. But after doing a lot of conferences, I realized that we were going to these beautiful, beautiful places and spending most of our time indoors. And that just didn't set right with me. I'm going, why do I want to? We live around Disney World. We can go to the hotels and hang out in there for free, or we can go to one of those places and have kids play a little bit and go on a group rate and hang out there. So why, if we're going to stay indoors, we're going to stay indoors in style, right? So after a while of doing that and getting about 3 hours of snow skiing in per year, if there was snow, at these conferences that were in the mountains around ski slopes, I decided, we need to see about doing ski trips. Other student ministries do that. Let's see what it's all about, because we can make up our own program. I think we'll take more students, and we're going to have intimate time with them. We're going to get more time in the wilderness, more time in beauty, and more things to talk about God. And we used to look for God sightings. So we did West Virginia for a lot of years. With a winter retreat for middle schoolers, we would take them to Gatlinburg. Not on conference, though. What we'd do with them was we'd take them to the hotels because we knew that routine in Gatlinburg. We'd do a thing called the Polar Bear, which was really a great event. Your feet would turn blue. We'd go down to the river, and they're pretty shallow rivers there. And we learned to do this before we did church ministry. We were doing it with Campus Life. And you go in, and we just have them wade around up into their thighs. Staff had to go in with them. They had to follow staff, stay in as long as the staff would. And if they stayed in as long as the staff would stay in, they were honorary polar bears. And we had some students that were so warm-bodied that they would lay in this 40-degree water and float around for a while, which I did not do. I dove under one time, thought my head was going to explode. But those things were phenomenal. We saw a lot more traction with our students by going to wilderness events. And we'd go to this one particular place that was designed for rope courses and horse riding and different things like that. And we'd do that during the school year on a long weekend for the middle schoolers. For high schoolers, we'd go up to Snowshoe, West Virginia, because it was the first best great ski slope before you got to Vermont on the East Coast. And Snowshoe was a great place. Really difficult to get to. 19-hour drive, no matter how you shake it, you're going to end up on a bus for 19 hours. So we'd usually do an all-nighter. And we would hire bus companies, which I recommend. I do not recommend all-nighters with you driving yourself, unless you have multiple drivers, unless they have some certifications and they have no tickets. Let me tell you what, insurance is getting tighter and tighter on us, so you got to really watch your insurance, know what your coverage is, buy extra coverage. I'm giving you these things because these are necessary things that we ended up doing. And I learned in ski trips from a group in Georgia that if you want to stay out of the hospital or out of the infirmary, that you made sure that any student that was not a real good skier and you didn't know they were a good skier had to take a lesson. That at least kept them away from their friends killing them by going, no, you can do this, and they break a leg or an arm or something. And so there'd be at least half a day that first day, which really made them more secure, and it didn't affect their ego because we demanded that they do it. And so very few accidents, very few breaks, even though we had some, but we did a lot of years of that. We did probably 29 years of winter retreats. Then one time I had, through this bunch of circumstances, groupless ski trip, Groupless, by Don Holmes, and you can go see him on, I believe it's episode 58, 57 on Youth Worker on Fire. Go there and listen to Don. He was my travel agent for about 20 years, up to the last year that I was in student ministry with this one church for 29 years. 20 years of that, he was my travel agent, and I always trusted Don, went with Don because he's an avid skier, he knew what he was doing, and because the first time I skied in Colorado was for free. I paid a plane ticket, and his company paid for everything else. Stayed in a beautiful condo. The light bulb came on in my mind. No one in my county, we were rural outside of Orlando. It took us about 25 minutes to get to Orlando, just far enough away to where students weren't going to big churches over there. And very few people were doing these Colorado ski trips, which made it very unique. And I needed something for college, so I started taking college first out there. My first one was with Don Holmes, High Point Travel, and I look up Don, and also Groupless ski trip. He's still doing those, okay, if you're a youth worker. I went out there and I thought, how cool would it be if this could happen? This will be such a God thing because we're a small community. We're already stretching budget and really pushing the limits on how far we can really get our church to grow in these areas. And they started doing a real good job with funding and that sort of thing, even though we still had to do fundraisers. And so we thought, hey, let's try it. So the first thing we did was college and career. We had done nothing like that with college that was specifically for them. And by the way, it started catapulting our college group. Now, we didn't grow to hundreds, but we did reach out to hundreds. And because we'd already been dealing with thousands of high school students, now our group was only anywhere from 50 to 70 in the high school area, but we were reaching out to thousands in some of the programs that we would do at least once a year, and in some cases 3 times a year throughout the entire county, and sometimes multiple counties. So we were very successful with the college trip out to Colorado. We do it during spring break at first, and to cover a couple of spring breaks and different groups from across the nation that were from Florida and wanted to bring their friends, we did 2 weeks on a couple of occasions. So I had 2 separate groups of staff, because remember, staffers taking work off, it's costing them money. At that point, they're going to have to pay for at least half their way. Later, it got to where our boards felt bad for them and started paying more of their way. And so 5 years of that, but then we realized, it's getting really difficult to collect from college students, and it's difficult to begin with. So let's go ahead and take our high schoolers out. Now I'll tell you, one of the reasons we took the high schoolers out that year was the boards for a couple of years, our funds were growing from fundraisers, and the boards got upset, or at least a few of them did, that we had an overage of money that kept building up, and they said, why are you charging these kids XYZ, and you just need to spend that money and make it easier on them. And I tried to say, listen, this is a season, and if we spend all that money now, sure enough, later we're not going to have it when we need it. Let's charge, and we always scholarship people, and we use that money as scholarship, and we didn't even exactly know how it kept growing, except that there were certain people that actually put money into our retreats. They saw the values, they saw the changed lives. And not only did we do those retreats, but we did mission retreats throughout different parts of the world, Mexico, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Appalachia Mountains, Hurricane Andrew. There were just a numerous amount of things that we did to help in those areas, as well as locally, on top of these winter retreats. We didn't just do winter retreats. That was to reach a certain type of student. And those students bought into Jesus and bought into our church and ended up going on mission trips as well. So all of it is necessary. So what I did was I made a Colorado trip really inexpensive, $400. How do you do that? Fly out, have several of your meals a day, and your ski and lodging and everything. A phenomenal thing. In fact, we ended up with free lodging out there for 2 years because of some people that lived in different parts of the United States, and part of the time they lived in Florida and go to our church. And they invited us out. And so just an incredible situation that we're able to do there. We were at Steamboat 3 years because of that. With that, with the students, we get out there, we're in this atmosphere. Where do you take Florida students to stand at 10,000 feet and look out over the Rocky Mountains and tell them about Jesus and that there's an extravagant God? And that God is not upset that we're spending this money. He is an extravagant God, and there's more than enough to go around, not only for them, but for our missions, for all these different things, as a place for them to bring their friends that would never go with them anyplace else. So on your winter retreats, especially because summer, even in Florida, it's hard to nail students down unless we're doing a missions trip, unless we're doing Washington, D.C., which was like on a 3-year cycle. We'd do missions one summer, and many times we'd do it over spring break to Guatemala, different places like that. We had 5 years of Guatemala. We did 5 to 8 years divided up with Dominican Republic. We did Arizona, the Papago Indian Reservation. We did many, many years with Mission Discovery out of Nashville area. My good friend Maury Buchanan, Jimmy Rivera is his assistant out there, and many, many other staff. And we did the border of Mexico. They're right outside of Harlingen, Texas, and McAllen, Progreso, the 2 different cities that are like twin cities, and out there that we would go across the border and build houses for about 10 homes for each week that we would go out with multiple groups. And so we did all those things. But once again, you're in these exotic atmospheres, even if it's third world. The students that go, their lives are never the same. The students that go on the winter retreats, their lives are never the same. The students that go to Gatlinburg or go to Colorado, their lives are never the same. And to this day, 20 and 30-year-olds are going, we can't believe you guys did that for us. Nobody else did those things for us. And most of those students are involved in church somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's in our church. We hope it would be in the church that we raised them up in. But when they leave and go out of the area into other parts of the nation, to other parts of the world, and we've had students that are in Australia and New Zealand and all throughout Europe, and some that actually one was in Peace Corps and the Dominican Republic, and one that did missions in Holland and Amsterdam several times. I mean, we had just all kinds of people doing all kinds of things that started out as our students, and their horizons were broadened because we were not afraid to take them places they need to go. Safety is the first thing, though. Don't think because you're a student ministry that you're just going to do something and it falls together. No, you must plan. You must have a team. Everything is about a team. If you're doing it all on your own, you're already not safe. Are you hearing me? If you're doing these things without a good group of volunteers that you can trust and that respect you, a lot of times you get parents on there. I didn't take most parents, by the way. I used parents for other events, but I found that parents were too biased for their own children on the negative or the positive. So most of my volunteers that lasted 20 and 25 years were not parents. Now they ended up, their children, they ended up having children while they were with us, because some would stay 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years. And so their children obviously grew up, and when they got to high school, I would ask their student, hey, is it okay if mom and dad are here? Answer is yes or no. Anytime I broke that rule, it really hurt the student. I tried not to break that rule, but we all have flaws. We all can't see certain things because we love the people we've worked with all these years. We know who to trust. But when you're doing these events, make sure you trust your travel agent and you're not just doing them on your own. I did 5 years in Guatemala, but I did a 6th year with an organization that was designed for student ministry. I did 5 because our church said, hey, we're going to do this. And one of our guys, Charlie Stewart, who I absolutely loved, Charlie has passed now. He's in heaven. So Charlie, you know everything I'm saying. You knew what I thought back then. I loved doing it with those guys, but after about 5 years, I realized, no, I'm right. I really can't do this without an organization that's designed for adolescents and for college students. So I backed out of that. They're still doing that. 20 years later, they're still doing that ministry. It's a great, great thing with about 40,000 Mayan Indians in this area called Comitancillo. But the last time I went, stayed in Antigua, Guatemala, not the island. There's an Antigua island right in the Caribbean. Those things are exotic. And you need a team, and you need to know that everything is being done to keep your students safe. And by the way, never, ever, ever tell your parents that, oh, this is the safest trip. There's nothing going to happen. We've done this so many times. You cannot guarantee safety. And that's one lesson I learned from another organization, another youth pastor, was never say to a parent that their children are going to be absolutely safe, because you cannot guarantee safety. So with that in mind, plan your retreats, get as exotic as you can get, but as safe as you can get. Stretch it, but put all the barriers there you can get with the right teams, and always take a medical personnel with you. I made sure if there's a medical personnel I could take, whether they want to ski or whatever they want to do or hike, I paid their way because they were worth their weight in gold. Adios. Youth Worker on Fire, Doug Edwards here. Hope this helps.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.